So, welcome everyone to our SALT Talks, mid-February SALT Talks. It's hard to believe. So this month in February, we are working on planning for employment planning, however you want to look at it. But it was one of those times when you're transitioning from high school and then you're transitioning out of that and into the employment. There's so many factors in that whole process, and it gets very overwhelming. So I asked Elizabeth from the Butler County Board of Developmental Disabilities to go through their process, talk about, with being an employment navigator, what do we need to know as parents? And then there's also another process called doing a benefit analysis. We've had a couple of those done, and they're very helpful too as your child goes into that employment status. So, and I forgot to introduce, for those who don't know me, my name is Patty Schramm. Of course, I do have my name tag there, but and I'm the SALT coordinator trainer. So we'll go ahead and I'm going to turn it over to Elizabeth and let you get started.
Hey everyone. So yes, my name is Elizabeth. I also go by Libby, and I am the Employment Navigator for Butler County Board of DD. I want to let you know it's my first time presenting, so I'm a little nervous, so bear with me. And any questions you may have, if I don't know the answer, I have pen and paper here to write it down, and I will find out the answers for you, or I will figure out who I need to connect you with, depending on the nature of the question. So I do recognize one name, Kim Regal. Hi. So I'll get started. So let's see here. Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Usually, Libby, I'll have them enter their questions into the chat box. So as you're presenting, and I'll keep an eye on the chat box, and I'll stop you with a question if that's okay, or we can hold them to the end.
Whatever works best for you guys.
Okay.
All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. Let me know. Can you guys see this? It says what your EN can do for you.
Yep.
I'm used to Microsoft Teams, not Zoom.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, perfect. So for maybe all of you, some of you, none of you, an employment navigator is a person who is temporarily part of your team. So I would not be there long term. I'm not like your SSA. I'm not the designated person you would reach out to for everyday questions. I am strictly here to assist with the employment planning. And what I focus on is meeting with the team, getting to know the individual, their strengths, their challenges, if they've had any work history, if they're fresh out of school, if they participate in Project Life or Search, and how can we get them from path 2, I'm interested in working, or path 3, I kind of know about working, but I want to know more, to gain to that goal to where they are competitively employed in the community. So my primary role is to assist in the planning, coordinating, and monitoring of employment-related supports to job seekers with developmental disabilities in their local communities. A lot of times I come into the picture, like I said, to get to know the individual and to understand what their foundation or their knowledge is of working. So we might have someone say, I want to work at Kroger's. Well, why is it you want to work at Kroger's? I go grocery shopping there a lot with my mom, and I know Robert. Okay, well, what do you think Robert does? I see him say hi to people. And so we start to talk more and more about, well, what does Robert do? Does he help bag the groceries? Have you ever noticed any specific way he does? And we just start to open up that dialogue to see what their perception is of community employment. We brainstorm different ideas and options. I provide different job leads in the community. I work very closely with OOD, Ohio Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities. They're an outside agency and we work very closely with them to braid the funding. I also provide different information on upcoming job fairs. I can provide information on resources that Ohio Means Jobs might provide, or Butler Tech, different employment services and rules, career planning, guidance with providers and connections with the different employment providers that we have, and contact information. So, once your child is in the adult world and you believe that the next step is for employment, you would reach out to your support coordinator and they would make a referral to me, which is a pretty basic sheet. It just gives the person's name, date of birth, and then are they interested in working, or are they interested in learning more about work, and if they have any work history. From there, we schedule a meeting, and that's when I come in the picture and we just sit down and I get to know you. I get to know them, any concerns you may have, any thoughts you may have. A lot of times it is around their loved ones' benefits and how it will be impacted, which we will talk about later in this presentation. Suggested times for a referral to me is when the individual expresses an interest in getting a job, or let's say the person already has a job, but there's new management and that communication piece is missing because it's a new person and they don't know the appropriate way to speak to the individual, or the individual just doesn't know them and isn't comfortable speaking to them, right? Or let's say they get new job tasks and they need to learn what to do. I would be able to step in and help us decide and find a job coach, if there isn't one already there, to step in and to help navigate those situations and to help work with the individual and said employer. I also get involved when a person loses a job or maybe wants to advance and find another job at a different place, or find a different job within the employer that they have. Let's see here. I monitor employment providers and to ensure their quality of work, right? To ensure that they are going in as they're paid to do. Is it twice a week, twice a month, however that may look for the client? I ensure that that is being done and what is being discussed. I receive monthly reports from different employment providers, and that way I can review and take it back to the team, but also be aware of what is happening behind the scenes. Let's see here. I'm around for, benefits about their loved one when they start working, and any questions or concerns or fears about a person losing their benefits. So, does anyone have any questions about this little sheet right here? It's pretty straightforward.
There's no questions yet at this time.
Okay, wonderful. All right, how do I? Hold on, I did something.
So yeah, you would unshare and then you can reshare your other. Yeah.
All right, so one of the fun tools that we have is called a career discovery. And this is something that I thoroughly enjoy. So oftentimes with adults and young adults coming out into the high school, it's, I want to work, I've never worked, but I don't know what I want to do. And that's true for anyone. When I graduated high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do, right? It's all about learning about yourself and how your interests and talents can be applied into the community. So I really enjoy career discovery. Career discovery is an assessment where we would sit down and pick a provider. And once again, a provider, when I say provider, it's a paid support such as Easter Seals or Buckner Best Capabilities. We have quite a few out there. And they come in and they get to know the individual. They speak to the individual, they speak to the parents or natural supports for the individual, any siblings, sometimes even neighbors, whoever is around the person a decent amount and knows the person well, they like to gather all the information that they can to learn more about said person. Because the person can say, you know what, I really like Kings Island. And mom might say, well, you like going to Kings Island during the day when it's not so crowded. And it's important to know they don't like a lot of people around them, or they don't like loud noises, things of that nature. Then they identify 3 different areas in which a person is most interested in. So, for example, I had a client who loved history, sports, and gaming. And those were the top 3. He could rattle off statistics about different sports teams, especially baseball. He loved history, loved history. It was like a textbook. You can ask him anything about World War II and he knew the answer. And then gaming, he just thoroughly enjoyed gaming. It was a great pastime for him. So from there, what they would do is they would go to different places within the community and see what type of jobs were offered at these places. It's called an informational interview. So for example, they went to the Cincinnati Children's History Museum, and he had an informational interview with a tour guide. And he got to participate and walk around with the tour guide as if he was on the tour with a group of people, just them, himself, the provider, and the tour guide. And they broke down what their day-to-day would look like and how they would prepare for the material, because they would have different exhibits coming in. So how much time would they get in advance? Was the material already prepared? Did they get to take flashcards with them? So he got to go and learn more about that. The other one was GameStop, because he loves gaming and it's a smaller store. So he got to go in and speak to the owner, and he'd say, well, when I start my day, I would start off by ensuring that products were stocked and then bathrooms were clean and whatnot, what have you. And when customers come in, I would ask them, is there something specific you're looking for? Can I help you? And then take them around the store and show them the layout. And then the third one, ironically, was a sports bar during a Cincinnati Reds game. And this was more so to see how he interacted with the participants, the patrons there, and how he was able to navigate different conversations with different sports lovers, because he would become so hyper-focused on one baseball player. Was he able to pull himself out of it and engage in a conversation and provide not that customer service piece, but almost in the sense of how well did he interact with other people. So from that, we got together and we discussed the different places they went, what he learned, who he spoke to, and what was the most interesting for him. He did not like GameStop, because when he was told he couldn't just talk to the customers about the specific games he liked, and he couldn't just push for those games to be sold, that kind of deterred him. And cleaning the bathrooms he didn't care for either. So that was out. So he actually went with more of the sporting themes, and they were able to find him a job in the community where he could be around sports and speak to others about sports, but also remain productive at the same time. So this is right here, what I'm showing you now is just more in detail of the process. I like just to give that example because it's something that truly did happen, and it was a great tool, because after we sat down and learned more about him and how his likes and interests can be applied in a community job, they were then able to identify a job goal and start job development, which is creating a resume, working on interview skills, applying for jobs, following up with different employers on the jobs applied for, things of that nature. So the home visit, observations, the team meeting, things of that nature. So that is what this is about, just more in detail of the process for you. And then So that's just one tool that is available to you and your loved one, your transition kiddo. And it's just my favorite assessment that is available. So that's why I wanted to share it with you in more detail. And then this is just a flow chart of how that would look if that is something that you would be interested in the future. It would be a referral to me, reaching out to different providers. And you always have the right to interview the different providers as well, so you can get to know them better and learn why they believe they would be the best candidate. You always have free choice of provider. So that's just a nice little flow chart of what it looks like. Below are the different paths to employment that we have. So a path 4 is someone that does not want to work in the community whatsoever, has zero interest. Stop asking me about it. I'm happy with my life. Leave me alone type of person. And we have some of those, and that's great. We're all person-centered and we're here to support them and what they want to do. A path 3 is I've heard about work. I might want to work. I need to know more about it. A path 2 is I want a job. Help me find a job. Or I have a job and I want a different job. Or excuse me, help me find a job. And then a path 1 is I have a job or I'd like to find a different job. So those are the 4 different paths to employment that we have. So you will, at your Ohio ISP meetings, you probably have already discussed this. This is something that is brought up every year with your SSA. Okay. Does anyone have any questions so far?
There was one question that was asked, is career discovery a service offered by OOD?
So OOD does not provide a career discovery. They provide something called career exploration, which is similar, but it's not as hands-on. So a career discovery is something that the county board would pay for, despite if the person has a waiver or is just strictly local funds. That is something that we would pay for. It's a one-time payment, just a 1-unit payment. OOD has something called career exploration, which is similar in the sense where they talk to the person about their likes and interests, but it's more of a questionnaire assessment that is done. And then they pull that information and say, okay, you tested the highest and showing an interest in, I'm trying to think of one. I haven't reviewed we don't do career explorations very often because that is a service that OOD provides, but it would be working with animals was one that I remember reviewing. Not so much being around people, but being with animals. And so it just scores their interest in a category. And then from there, they would review what jobs are available in the area in those categories. Does that make sense? Did I explain that well enough? Okay, I just want to make sure. So OOD does not provide career discovery, but that is something that we do.
I just want to also add to that, is that we do have, and I put it in the chat, that OOD will be speaking next Tuesday night. If you want to know more details on OOD and their services, they'll be speaking Tuesday night.
They've got a lot of great ones.
Yeah.
All right. So on to probably what most are most concerned about, which is benefits analysis. All right. So once again, if you have any questions and I don't know the answer, I will do my best to find out the answers, because obviously I don't work with Social Security. I don't work with Medicaid, or I don't work for them, I should say. I try to work alongside them as best as I can and to understand, but Social Security is very confusing. Medicaid is very confusing. So I'm constantly learning more and more. So, okay. Benefits analysis. I'm gonna hide you guys. What is a benefits analysis? This is a career planning service that provides a detailed report detailing information concerning impact of paid employment on a range of public assistance and benefits programs for job seekers, families, guardians, advocates, support administrators, and educators. So a lot of times when you hear employment, it's almost taboo because you get nervous and scared. My loved one receives SSI or SSDI or Medicaid. They can't work because then they're going to be at risk of being over the resource limit and losing such things. So what a benefits analysis does, it's a great, great tool where it outlines exactly what benefits they're receiving, what is reported to Social Security, and how much a person can work at what hourly wage before ever being in threat of losing their SSI, their SSDI, or their Medicaid. It's a wonderful, wonderful tool. So, when to use this service? The service can be used when an individual expresses they need more information about work and how working can impact their benefits, such as SSI, SSDI, food stamps, and Medicaid. This is a service that can be paid for by OOD or any of our waivers. I am the one that completes the benefits analysis here for Butler County if we were to do it with in-house. If your loved one is already connected with OOD, it could be if they're in Project Search, you can say, hey, I want a benefits analysis done, and they can also have that done for you as well. And to be honest, I'm going to be honest, if you are already connected with OOD, it would be faster for you to have them complete the benefits analysis because they have contracts with different providers who can complete this, as well as people with in-house within OOD who can complete this service. It's just me, and it will take longer on my end to get it done because I get so many. So I do want to be honest with you on that one. So who is eligible to receive a benefits analysis? The individual must be age 14, but not yet full retirement age, disabled per Social Security's definition, already receiving or approved to receive Social Security benefits based on SSI or a Title II disability benefit, such as SSDI, receiving Medicaid while working. So a lot of this, the 1619B, is just the forms that they have. That's the name of the forms. Most often the service is used to help someone who is starting a new job or has a pay raise or a change in earned income. Very useful to have that. Beneficiaries don't have to be employed, and they don't have to have a current job offer to get a benefits analysis done. They can be used in the event of, we're going to start looking for jobs. This is our goal for the year of 2025. But before we do that, what are our parameters? So, does everyone know the difference? Well, we'll get there. Excuse me. I'm ahead of myself. A beneficiary who has received initial notice that Social Security considers him or her to be engaging in substantial gainful activity, also known as SGA, is $16.20 per month gross for 2025. SGA is only applicable if a person is receiving SSDI. Okay. So we will get on to does everyone know the difference between SSI and SSDI? Because I can go to
There might be some that need to have a refresher on it because we have a wide range here of parents on today.
Okay, then we'll just go ahead and skip to that slide because I don't want to confuse anyone. So there are two different types. SSI and SSDI. SSDI is Social Security Disability Insurance. So that is either someone receiving it if they are deemed as a disabled child, if they are pulling from a parent's retirement, or if a parent has passed away and they're pulling it from their retirement or a disabled child at that point. So SSI is completely supplemental. That is based on income. And the two operate very differently. So with SSDI, that SGA, the substantial gainful activity I just mentioned, the 1620, that is for SSDI. And what that means is a person receiving this benefit can work and earn up to that amount of money before being in threat of losing the SSDI. So they can work up to $1,520 gross per month. They can earn that from their job and still receive their SSDI check in full without it being affected. SSI is different because it's supplemental. And Social Security has a formula. I don't know why they came up with or how they came up with this formula, but it's theirs. And when you start working, you will notice that your SSI check will start to dip down. And that's because you then have earned income coming in. So what I do with this report is something called the break-even point, which is where I learn at what point, how many hours can a person work, at what hourly wage before they hit the break-even point and their SSI goes to zero, because that's what we want to avoid. So at the end of the day, the person will still have more money coming into their pocket if they're working and their SSI check going down. At the end of the day, it's still more money coming to them versus just SSI and not working. Okay. How to get this process started. If you receive services from your county board of DD, start the conversation with your SSA and say, hey, look, this is something we would like to have done. Reach out to Libby, and they will, and we'll get started. It's fairly simple. What I would need to do is I would need to meet with you and the loved one, depending on, I would prefer everyone there to review everything in more detail because I know we're limited on time today, but it would be a form that would need signed, which is called a benefits planning query. It's called the BPQI, and that says YQ and it shouldn't. My apologies. And it gives me permission to speak to Social Security about your child's benefits. And it's a pretty cool tool. So this is all it is. It has the person's name, date of birth, Social Security number. It would say, I, Elizabeth Grove, I'm requesting this. I work for Butler County Board of DD. The reason why is because I want to get a benefits analysis completed for them, and then just their signature at the bottom. I send it over to my point of contact. It can take a few weeks to get this form back. And then from there, we start the report. So with this BPQI, this is an example of what it will look like once I get it back. So this one is if a person is receiving SSDI. Tells me the type of benefit they're working, the date of the disability that Social Security has on record of it being reported and when they started being issued this benefit, the date of entitlement, the amount they're receiving, the cash family benefit. So let's say I have a client whose mom is retired and receiving her retirement, son is receiving retirement funding from his dad. That just shows me what the total household is, but that does not play a role into the mathematics of the individual's benefits. Tells me when they're going to be their next medical cycle is. Sometimes it's every 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. And this is when Social Security will pull the person's file and review it. And that's when you might get a letter in the mail saying, hey, I need pay stubs dating 6 years ago by next week. That's typically what they like to do. Make it as difficult as possible, but that tells you when they're going to be reviewing it again. Okay. This is the second page. What type of health insurance they're receiving. Medicaid, Medicare, A, B, things of that nature. And then it also for Social Security for SSDI, it tells me if they started trial work months, which is very, very important to know. So we will go on. To what a 9 trial work period is. Why did these get all shown? Okay. When a person is receiving SSDI, there's that SGA limit for the year of 2025 at 1620 of how much a person can earn each month before losing their SSDI benefit. It's gross. So this is all before taxes. What a person makes before their taxes are taken out. Every year, the SGA limit does increase because of cost of living. So in 2024, the SGA limit was $1,550. So a person receiving SSDI could not exceed the gross earned income of $1,550 for a month, right? However, with SSDI, they do have something called a 9 trial work period. And this is when a person is working, and let's say they're doing very well, and they go over the amount. This is where, for whatever reason, it's not what they trigger to be over the amount for this 9 trial work period is $1,160. That's when they go, oh, maybe this person shouldn't be receiving this benefit because they're earning so much. Let's keep an eye on them. Let's just see how they perform. So for 9 months, a person can make as much, once they trigger that $1,160, as much money as they want. It does not have to be consecutive either. So they might hit that marker in 2019 and not again until 2024. It doesn't have to be consecutive. It's just 9 months in total. But a person can earn up to $5,000 one month and it'd be fine, as long as it does not exceed 9 times. Once it does, that's when Social Security is going to reflect and say, is this person deemed, this is their language, not mine, is this person truly deemed disabled? And why are they receiving this benefit if they are able to successfully earn so much money? Okay. Now, the reason why I bring this up right now is because one of the things, the BPQI form that I would get from Social Security, it would tell me what, if they've ever exceeded the 9 trial work period, if they even started it, if they have, how many months. Do they do it twice, 6 times, 8 times, 9 times? This tells me what Social Security has on file, and if that person is in threat of having an overpayment. Because Social Security reviews each person's file in a 3, 5, 7-year cycle. You might get a letter saying you owe us an overpayment now because you hit that 9 trial work period 2 years ago, and we've continued to pay you these full 2 years, and now you owe us $20,000. So this is why this is critical to have if a person's already been working and gets a job raise or wants to move on to a different job. This is why it's so important to know what Social Security has and where they are. So, any questions so far? Is that making sense? Okay, because it's very confusing.
Yeah, there's no questions yet.
Okay, awesome. Just want to make sure.
Mhm.
Okay, this is what the BPQI would look like if a person was receiving SSI. So that's the supplemental income based on a person's resources and income. Excuse me. And once again, it tells me when the person started receiving it, the amount they're receiving, the next medical review exam, the cycle, any work exclusions that they may qualify for if they need some sort of assistive technology or something to help them at work. That could be a write-off so it doesn't affect their SSI benefit, right? So that way they're not taking more money out of their SSI check because this is a needed expense for them to work. So that's what it tells. Oh, and once again, tells me their health insurance.
Libby, is this that specific report, is that something a parent can request, or is that only through like,
Any parent can request it.
okay,
If you are the guardian, you can request it. If your child is the guard, whoever is, if the child's their legal guardian, they can request it. If you want to request on their behalf, you would still have to fill out that form, sign it at the bottom, but yes, you can request it.
and is that something that they would have to do it through the county board, or can they request it directly from, I guess, Social Security, or directly from?
You can request it directly from Social Security. Absolutely. That's the individual's information, as absolutely. Alright. So after I get this BPQI, I type up this fancy report, I do the math, and I figure out, once again, the parameters of which the person can work. 20 hours a week earning 14 hours or dollars an hour. How much would their SSI go down? How close are they to the SGA level, depending on their benefit? Things like that. That's what I would learn from this report. And it's a very lengthy report. It's very useful. It goes over the different scenarios and we sit down and review it. If the person's not working yet, I type out a variety of scenarios. So we know, okay, minimum wage now is 1070. So at the bare minimum, we know they're going to at least earn that. What would that look like if they wanted to start off working 15 hours a week? How much is their SSI going to look, or excuse me, how much is their SSI going to go down? And what is their gross income going to be combined now that they're working? So that's what I would determine on my end. So here to go on that, you can go to this website. What benefits do I get? We already reviewed this. This is once again, do you get SSI versus SSDI? And then benefits planning estimators. This is something where you can plug in income information and get an estimate, however the best, a rough estimate of how things would look once the person starts working. The best practice would still be to use a calculation worksheet versus this one, this automated one, in my opinion. But and then this is what the SSI calculation sheet looks like.
Are you able to enlarge that a little bit? I think if
How do I do that?
so, you have a scale down in the lower right. It has 82%. It's down there. If you slide that scale, it might make it large enough.
Hold on.
Or
I have your images down here at the bottom. I'm trying to
oh, okay.
trying to
Yeah.
hide you right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
So that better?
yeah, now I can see it a little bit better. Yeah.
So at the top, the scenario, the wage, hours a person would work, gross income. Am I going too quickly?
Fine. And so this form they can get from where?
This form you could find on, oh, where did I go? This form you should be able to find online. They update it every year, because even SSI goes up every year as well. So it was 947 and now it's 963, I believe. Or am I getting 943 and it's now 967? I can't remember. But it has gone up, but the Social Security website should have it.
Is that also on the Disability Benefits 101 website, or is it just more or less a Social Security website?
Probably more Social Security website. I would go.
Okay.
So. Am I okay to?
Yeah. I was just getting that website for them.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Whoa. A little too close now. This is what we reviewed, triggering a trial work period if the person has SSDI. All right. And then this is just kind of a rough draft of, well, it's been redacted, but this is what the final product would look like when we would come together as a team, sit down and review everything I learned from the BPQI and what we would need to pay attention to moving forward. Oops. It also provides with you information on how to report the person's wages. The information you would need to provide when a person does start working. You would need to get a letter from HR, from the employer, saying, Bob started working at Goodwill on January 1st of 2025. That's all it would need to say. So it's proof of when they started working, and then from there, you would need to submit pay stubs before the 6th of every month. So for the month of January, those pay stubs you would need to submit before the 6th of September or the 6th of February for the month of January's earnings, and so on and so forth. But it also provides to you, how to do so. And there's actually a few different ways a person can. Some people prefer to still go to the local Social Security office and sit there and be called up and have everything scanned and get that stamp of approval for that peace of mind that it didn't get lost in the shuffle or lost in snail mail, and that Social Security has it and you have record and proof of it, right? Some people like to do it on the Social Security app, which I had a client of mine demonstrate for me how it was used, because I asked if we were able to download it on our work phones, and I was told no, because it's hard to give guidance on something where you've never experienced it yourself, right? So my client was very kind enough to indulge me and to sit me down and show me how she would do it. And you enter the time frame of the pay period, the gross amount of money that she earned, and then she would submit an image of the pay stub. She's so fluent in it now, it probably takes her about 3 minutes, and she does it very well. So that is an option, as in addition to mailing it in or taking it in person. So here's this again. Different scenarios, different work expenses that you might be applicable. Oh, and I got zoom in again. So the different elements that will be included in this report. Consumers' full report should list summary of their situation and work goals, that it was verified, calculations about the work scenario, the impact on Medicaid, SSI or SSDI, work incentives that could apply, such as impairment related work expenses, different resources for the person to safely save money without being over the resource limit, such as a stable account or a pass account. And then in addition to the reporting requirements the person will have to Social Security once they start working. So, any question?
And I see where some parents, I put out there that we have always entered ours online, and some other parents said they did too. It
Yep.
is very easy process to do online. We have done it all different ways, from mailing in to dropping off to online, and online is definitely the easiest.
Would agree.
Now, we've had a benefit, just, for those attending, for us personally, we've had a benefit analysis done, I think at least 3 times. Usually when there was a job change, life change kind of thing, or, sometimes when they change jobs, their pay rates change and all that. We want to know where we stood, especially with the trial work period.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know everything that Elizabeth went through today. So in March and April, there's a lot of overlapping. It's hard to get everything into one. We wanted to make sure that touched on the benefit analysis, because it's going to tie into, in March, we're doing Social Security and Medicaid, Medicare, we're going to be talking about that. And then we have, in April, we have the stable account, special needs trusts, and all of them. So it's a lot of information all at once. So we try to break it up as the best we can in 2 stages. So you can just take in a little bit of time and make them available so you can re-listen and review. Does anybody have any questions? I think we got all the questions in the chat box. Elizabeth, is there anything else you wanted to add? And I can stop the recording so then people can just open up if they want to just ask a question. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add, Elizabeth?
I'm gonna stop sharing. Nope, did I?
Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
you stopped sharing. You're good.
If you are wanting to learn, practice with the SSI calculation sheet or SSDI or however you want to do it at home after reviewing all of this, do not multiply the person's weekly gross earnings by 4, because I know there's 4 weeks in a month, but Social Security does not do it by 4. They multiply it by 4.33. And this is because there are some months of the year where we get an additional paycheck. January, we had a 3rd paycheck, just the way the pay period falls. So do not multiply the weekly gross earnings by 4, multiply it by 4.33, and that is how they calculate the gross monthly earnings. We're still going through this with Social Security, but family is the rep payee. They handle their child's earned income Social Security, and they thought it was by 4, and they now have a rather large overpayment. So we are in the process of arguing and having that waived, because it's not the client's, that's just a mess. But 4.33, not 4. That's it.
All right. Well, I'm going to close the recording so that we can just have an open discussion about all this, because I know there is a lot to this process. As I mentioned, I had several done. I really recommend a benefit analysis. And I don't know, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Elizabeth, but I think my very first one, the very, very first one I had, was done through legal aid. I'm not exact, it's either that and then later OOD, but I'm thinking legal aid was my first one. I don't know if they still do it anymore, but, and I know OOD has done it, and I know then DD Services has also done it for us. But yeah, you can get it done in several places, and I really recommend it. And just periodically do a check, especially regarding the work trial periods, because those 9 months do come into play eventually. And then if you go over that SGA, and you're past your trial period. it becomes very tricky.
Does.
So thank you, Elizabeth. I'm going to go ahead and close the recording, and so we can open up with discussion. So one second while I do that. And I will have this recording available on YouTube in about 2 or 3 days. 1 second.